You're listening to the Monday Night Community Show with Daniel on BRFM.
Joined with Laurence Young live in the studio, talking all about the Faversham Enterprise Partnership. Laurence, as always, it's great to talk to you here at BRFM.
Yeah, thanks very much for the invitation, Daniel. Nice to be here again.
And I was wondering if you could start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and your role.
Yeah, well, I'm a Faversham boy, I suppose. I've lived there a very long time, and for the last 8 years now, I've been working for the Faversham Enterprise Partnership. So started off in 2004, and we're a very little regeneration agency, I suppose. We're a not-for-profit company, and we were formed with help from the Town Council, local businesses, Swale Council, Kent County Council and others, to do things in the local Faversham area, so that's the town and the villages around, looking to develop business, bring business in, get funding for projects and so on. So people pretty know us through things like the faversham.org site, which we run. Faversham.org's fabulous site if you've been on it. About 1,800 pages now of information, big what's on section, lots of history, tourism information, places to visit, places to see. So people know us through that, and we run the local rewards card scheme, the loyalty card scheme, Faversham Rewards, and that's got about 3,000 plus card holders now, and just over 30 shops and other outlets trading under it. We estimate that there's about £3 million worth of trade have gone through the card scheme since it started in 2009, so very successful.
Now, I know, Laurence, that you wanted to talk a little bit about Faversham Town Centre and shopping there as well.
Yeah, I think it's been an interesting time on high streets around the UK. Lots of talk and unfortunately action in a way, with high street retailers going down the tubes, Thomas Cook most recently, and of course that affects every town, every city in the UK. Faversham's quite an interesting place because I think, like other towns around, what we're finding is the independent retailers are actually doing better than the chains. It's the opposite of what you might think would happen. So as I say, people like Thomas Cook and others really have suffered, and perhaps the really big boys, Tesco and so on, have held their own. But the independent retailers, people have seem to have got an appetite for what little shops can sell, those knick-knacky places, selling things that you can't get out elsewhere. And Faversham, of course, is very rich in those.
Now, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about King Stephen.
Oh, yeah, no, it's one of the sort of buzzes locally, isn't it, at the moment? I think everybody's followed the story about Richard III, that probably the most amazing story, isn't it, where the King was ultimately found under a car park in Leicester city centre, which is quite bizarre. And so everybody's agog about that, and that's led to people locally, Faversham and indeed around, getting very excited about King Stephen, who, if you like, is Faversham's own king, and who was buried in Faversham Abbey when it existed in the latter half of the 12th century. What had happened was Stephen had selected Faversham to be his favourite royal town and had the abbey built. It was founded in 1147, and not only was it going to be his royal abbey, it was going to be his royal mausoleum where his family were going to be buried down the generations. But as many people know, his plans went spectacularly pear-shaped when he lost a 18-year-long civil war with his aunt, the Empress Matilda, and his son predeceased him, and his wife died, and his dynasty came to nothing. The abbey housed his tomb through to the Reformation, when Henry VIII had the whole lot taken down, and it turned out, subsequently we found, that the tomb was emptied, and the whereabouts of King Stephen have remained a mystery for centuries.
And we're talking all about King Stephen at the moment.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. Just saying, King Stephen was buried in Faversham Abbey, second half of the 12th century, and there he and his family rested in peace until the Reformation, when the abbey was taken down, the stone was reused. We're told it was reused in Calais, which was English then, and it seems that the locals got a bit carried away with taking down the abbey, and in doing that they pillaged his tomb and that of his family, and there was an excavation in 1964, 1965, which confirmed the story. But when the archaeologists got in and had a look, the tomb indeed was there, but it was completely empty. And the story from Tudor times is that the bones of the king and his wife and son were thrown in Faversham Creek. But there's another story which says that the townsfolk, or monks from the abbey, actually rescued the bodies and reburied them in Faversham Parish Church. And what's happened recently in the light of the Richard III interest is people are speculating as to whether King Stephen is buried in Faversham Parish Church or not. There is a small unmarked tomb, a stone tomb, on the south side of the chancel in Faversham Parish Church, which is thought to be where his remains are. This is in the wake of Richard III, has featured in the Sunday papers and on the television. It's been in the Sunday Times and Sunday Express, and there's quite a discussion going on in the town at the moment as to whether perhaps a piece of archaeological work or a bit of research should be commissioned to check out exactly what has been going on.
Now, I know that you wanted to talk a little bit more about faversham.org, and I think it was updated recently as well.
Yes, that's right, Daniel, yeah, chatting about it. We were talking about the website, and we've had really quite a big push on the website, faversham.org, over the last year or so. Lucy Guthrie, who I work with, manages the site for us, and she's put together a real sort of interesting package of new look and new content. I think I mentioned earlier, the site now has something in the order of 1,800 pages of Faversham and Faversham area information, loads and loads of links, all sorts of lovely day-to-day things like links out to the trains and the weather, and it's really a big local resource. It's also got a forum, people sort of chatting, exchanging views, having an argument, that sort of stuff. But one of the main things that we find it gets used for is for local businesses. There are something in the order of 700 local businesses on the site, a couple of hundred paid advertisers taking pages, and more people, I suppose it's the way of the world, more and more people go to that directory just to pick up the local businesses, find out who a good electrician is, what the shops are doing, you know, where the good food and drink outlets are, all that sort of thing. And also a lot of visitors use it. We find that some of the B&B owners and hotels and pubs tell us they get a lot of business through the site. So it's really, really going well. Very exciting.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it. Now, I was wondering if you could talk to us a bit about the coming spring and summer season.
Yeah, well, we'll find some of that on the faversham.org site as well. It's got its own What's On section with lots and lots of good things coming up in its diary. I suppose the thing about Faversham, it's very much like the island, isn't it? There's plenty to do and plenty to see, not just in the town, but all around. When the weather improves, if it ever does, places like Mount Ephraim out at Herne Hill, Doddington Place, Belmont House up at Throwley, fantastic country houses and gardens, lovely cream teas, interesting houses to look at, gardens to walk around. Then in the town, the Faversham Society each year runs its open house and secret garden scheme, so local people who've got interesting places where they live open their house up, public go round, and similarly people who've got quirky gardens allow the general public just for 2 weekends a year to take a peek at what they've been growing. Then of course there's all the events. Faversham's really famous for events during the summer and indeed throughout the year, but I suppose the two big ones are the Hop Festival, which runs early September, and coming up fairly soon is the classic car show, the Faversham Transport Weekend, which has expanded in recent years. It used to be just on Sunday. It's on Saturday and Sunday this year, Saturday the 18th of May and Sunday the 19th of May, and this year there's a bus and commercial vehicle display on the Saturday, and hundreds, and I do mean hundreds, of antique and veteran cars on the Sunday. So that promises, if the weather ever changes, to be a really great weekend.
And I know you wanted to talk a little bit about localism.
Yeah, Daniel, it's just that we've just completed a piece of work for the Town Council in Faversham, I think called a Town Action Plan, which we were commissioned to produce for the council alongside a national organisation called Action for Market Towns. So I worked with AMT's policy manager, who's a lady called Alison Erdley, and we produced the plan for Faversham Town Council, which, amongst other things, was very revealing about what people in Faversham want. And we've discussed this with the Town Council. I've got a copy of the report in front of me, which has just been published and has gone to councillors. And it's saying that people in Faversham really want their own town to look after its own affairs. They want their local council to be sort of leaders in the community. And it struck me, not only does that apply to Faversham, but it applies, I think, across the whole Swale patch and wider, and here on the island. Minster's got a great parish council, I know. Sheerness, it always seems to me, is a place that could do with a town council. And if there was an opportunity for it to have one, I'd encourage people in Sheerness to really think about that. The local town council in Faversham, a fine group of upstanding people, and though they don't have a lot of money and they are all volunteers, they have a very good town clerk, new lady, Jackie Westlake, who's just joined them, and they're very influential and they really put their shoulder to the wheel to help the town and the surrounding villages.
I was wondering, before you go, Laurence, could you repeat those useful contact details for us?
Yeah, that's great stuff, Daniel. Really, if I may, I'd just point people to the very excellent faversham.org website. You'll find us, the Enterprise Partnership, on there. You'll find all details about councillors, the Faversham Town Councillors. There are links to Swale, all the places that I mentioned earlier, like Belmont, Mount Ephraim, Doddington Place, all the local shops, big places like Macnade and smaller places as well, and details of the Faversham Transport Weekend and the Hot Festival. It's all on that website. So if I may, I'd recommend people have a look out there.
Well, Laurence, I'd like to thank you very much for coming along and telling us all about what's happening in Faversham.
Great pleasure, Daniel. Lovely to be here again.